Hey guys, Mark Ferrasci with Protect Dog Training again. I'm trying to figure out a way to pass on the concept of what I'm talking about, reactivity. So I wanted to whiteboard this, okay? And excuse my bad drawing, but I wanted you to see this. See if I can get this in the camera the right way. Alright, so what we have is we have a man and dog up here in his path of travel, okay, which is this way. And notice there's a circle around my second diagram, basically, that's trying to convey to you a bubble. Meaning, and think of it as an invisible bubble around the person. Me and my dog, and them and their dog, okay? And that bubble would represent their threshold area on the outside edge of where they're going to start to go off and start to show the reactivity. So if you notice this, let's see if I can get this up where you can see it. Damn it, now I can't see my little thing. Alright, so the bottom one is basically me coming up into their area, okay? So think about it, I'll see if I can do this with my hands anyway. I'm traveling this way. The other dog is traveling this way, okay? So I want my path to intersect their path, but I want to keep my distance away from them, and I want to float my bubble, okay? I've got an invisible bubble around me where my area of where my dog will go off and that threshold is reached. So I need to be able to read my dog, be able to understand where that level's at, and I need to float my bubble up towards my distraction, my tool. I'm using them, my environment, as my tool to be able to create the behavior that I'm trying to solve, okay? So I need to keep my distance is your friend, out of the area to a certain degree and keep just under threshold. In other words, where that dog's level, he's going to go off, okay? Wherever that level may be. Think of it like a line in the sand where that's going to be the level where the dog crosses it, he no longer can handle it and he spirals up and goes off, gets reactive, okay? So wherever that's at, depending on your dog and how bad he is, you need to float that bubble and stay just below threshold, just below where he may go off, and do it in such a pattern that you do these turns, and you'll see it when I get this film for you. I'm going to have somebody doing it tonight. We're going to go to a dog park, and hopefully if I've got the right environment, I've never been to this one before, but I'm looking for a dog park that I can go into and use the fence line as an area for my floating my bubble and use that environment as a training tool, okay? So I'm going out to a park where I have other dogs, and I could use a park with other dogs and be able to see it. A lot of times I'll take that park and I'll cut it apart in my mind, and I will figure out what angles that I need to be able to intersect another dog and to be able to go towards that other dog and away from that other dog, so I float my bubble in such a way that the dog stays just under threshold or just able to just cross the threshold and remind him that he should be at my side versus floating out and worried about that other thing. Keep in mind, the dog is going to show you the body language. His ears are going to get erect. He's going to zone in. He's going to have eye contact. I want to keep it right below where he cannot handle it anymore and he escalates and spirals out of control, and we end up into that red level, or as Cesar Millan says, red zone, where now the dog is no longer clear and can't think, okay? That's the key, all right? And how you float your bubble. So look for this as I start to try to put these films together and having somebody that films me do this work, and think about how I'm doing that. We'll come back and discuss this more as we go along. But right now I'm just trying to convey to you, using the whiteboard here, and the bubbles that are around me and my travel would be going this way, and this dog that might be going this way. And it's all about the angles and being able to float that bubble with my right about turns and distance as my friend, going away from that, getting on a positive footing and doing a lot more praise, getting the dog sucked into his previous conditioning, okay, which is the positive. Dogs, you want a dog to be able to succeed, build up on the successes, and then you float your bubble right back towards the challenge again and break away and go the other way right below the threshold. Now sometimes I'll contradict that and I'll go just past the threshold. The reason I do that is that I've got enough in the bank, I've got enough conditioning in the bank that now the dog understands what he's supposed to be doing, and as long as he understands what he's supposed to be doing, I can challenge him a little bit more. But you want to make sure that you're fair. You don't want to go over threshold to the point where now you've got red zone and the dog doesn't feel, okay? And I'm using Caesar's word, he uses red zone. I taught it to him, it's red level, and he uses red zone. And I don't know if he really communicates it that well. Red zone basically is the dog going past that extreme where now their brain shuts off and they can't feel anything, okay? And pit bulls, mastiffs breeds are a lot more prone to this red zone level where they don't feel any correction once they get to that escalated stage and they're so high up in their aggression, they don't feel anything. Now, the way I like to explain that to my customers is if you had a child and he was sitting there watching TV and he's distracted. He's watching TV and you're in the kitchen and you say, Johnny, and you're trying to convey something to Johnny. And Johnny doesn't hear you because he's so intent on that TV. Johnny, I need you to do blah, 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 and Johnny doesn't hear you. About the third or fourth time, you get a little frustrated and you walk up and you smack Johnny upside the head. Johnny! Johnny turns around and goes, what do you want? Okay? Well, that's the same exact thing. You have a distraction out there that the dog's intent on, and their level of reactionary goes so high, they don't feel anything anymore. It's the same thing as that TV, a squirrel, any other type of outside motivator that may be more stimulating than what you can deal with your conditioning back here, okay? So, and we use a lot of tools to get through this fog of not being able to listen and to understand. When you get into protection is a good example. The drive states of the animal are so intense that they're not going to feel that correction to out the dog. And a lot of police departments, a lot of trainers will go to a stim collar to get through to that dog. But if you do conditioning the right way, a lot of times you'll be able to avoid the dog getting past that and getting to that level of intensity that he doesn't feel anything. So it's how you balance that. We'll get back to that maybe in another subject. But in a general sense, we're talking about reactivity and a very general, broad overview of that, okay? First thing we talked about was making sure you analyze the dog and you do enough figuring out where the aggression is coming from. Where is it coming from? What is this mental dog's, where's his head at in the work that is making him go off? Is it totally fearful? With this German Shepherd, with Rebel, it's not. Rebel's a built-in behavior pattern that he has because his owners didn't do things in the right way. It's excitement, it's stimulation that causes it, and there's a threshold that he's learned to go way past and get escalated to the point where the owner can't handle it, okay? I've got another dog in now, that little Australian Shepherd that I've got in for reactivity, and that dog is very much insecurity and fear. It's coming from a total different place, okay? Not that Rebels isn't coming from a little bit of insecurity, okay? That's why we do agility. That's why we do confidence building. We do a lot of that in conjunction with what we're doing to work this dog towards the overall solving of the problem, okay? So we'll talk about it more, but that's what we're calling float the bubble, okay? And that means being aware of the fact that you have an imaginary bubble, kind of like a force field around you, and so does the other dog, okay? And their ability to read each other and to put off communication with their body language happens a long way away, believe me. You'd be amazed on how well a dog can read another dog, even when they're not really close, okay? His body language tells them everything. If a dog's emanating fear and putting off fear and wants to run, this dog may want to chase and go after it, see? Again, why is the dog manifesting this reactivity? Where's his head at in the work, okay? We'll come back to that more as we go along. So I'm going to be looking to try to get a lot more videos and hopefully letting you guys see me actually work, where you'll be able to see it from an outside perspective and be able to put some of the stuff that I'm talking about together, all right? I'll talk to you later. Mark Ferrasci, Training, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.